Psalm 23 may be the most familiar chapter in the Bible, and that familiarity is exactly why many people miss its deepest power. They hear it at funerals. They quote it in hospitals. They whisper it during sleepless nights, hoping for comfort. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Even people far from church can recognize those lines. But here is the problem. Many hear Psalm 23 as a gentle poem for hard moments, when David was actually declaring a radical way of living under the rule of God. This psalm is not merely about comfort after tragedy. It is about confidence before the tragedy arrives. It is not only for the funeral home. It is for the battlefield, the waiting room, the lonely house, the crowded office, the midnight fear, and the hidden wound no one else sees. Psalm 23 reveals what life looks like when a person stops treating God like a distant idea and starts trusting Him as a present shepherd. That is the secret most people miss. The secret is not hidden in one mysterious Hebrew word or in some coded message buried between the lines. The secret is the movement of the whole psalm. David begins with the shepherd and ends in the house of the Lord. He starts with trust and ends with home. Every verse in between teaches the same life-changing truth. Security is not found in the absence of trouble. Security is found in the presence of God. David knew what he was writing about. Before he wore a crown, he carried a staff. Before he ruled a nation, he watched sheep. He knew how foolish sheep could be. He knew how quickly they wandered, how easily they panicked, and how completely they depended on a shepherd for food, safety, direction, and rest. So when David says, "The Lord is my shepherd," he is not offering religious poetry. He is making a deeply personal confession. I am not enough to lead myself. God must lead me. That confession is what changes everything. If the Lord is truly your shepherd, then provision looks different. Rest looks different. Peace looks different. Your valley looks different. Even your enemies look different. Psalm 23 is not promising an easy life. It is promising a guided life. It is promising that the God who leads also feeds, protects, restores, corrects, accompanies, and finally brings His people home. So today we are going to walk slowly through this psalm and uncover the pattern that holds it together. Green pastures, still waters, dark valleys, enemy tables, overflowing cups, and eternal dwelling are not separate promises scattered at random. They are stages of one relationship. The shepherd never changes, even when the scenery does. That means Psalm 23 is not teaching you to trust a feeling, a season, or an outcome. It is teaching you to trust a person. And once you see that, these ancient words stop being familiar lines you admire and become living truth for you. Psalm 23 opens with a declaration, not a request. The Lord is my shepherd. David does not say, the Lord might become my shepherd if my life improves. He says, the Lord is my shepherd now. That present tense matters, because everything that follows grows out of relationship, not circumstance. Sheep survive because the shepherd stays near. Believers endure because God does not merely send help. He gives Himself. That is why the next phrase is so shocking. I shall not want. David is not claiming that faithful people never feel desire, grief, or need. He is saying that when the Lord is your shepherd, nothing essential is missing. The deepest need of the human soul is not money, status, romance, control, or applause. The deepest need is God Himself. When that need is met, all other needs fall into their proper place. Then David says, "He makes me lie down in green pastures." Sheep do not lie down easily. They stay tense when they are afraid, hungry, threatened, or irritated. Rest requires safety. So this verse is not mainly about a scenic field. It is about the shepherd creating conditions where anxious creatures can finally exhale. Many people want the peace of Psalm 23 while resisting the leadership of Psalm 23, but rest is found close to the shepherd, not away from him. He leads me beside still waters, adds another layer. Sheep are frightened by rushing streams. Water can be life-giving, but it can also feel dangerous. The shepherd therefore finds a place where the sheep can drink without panic. In the same way, God does not lead His people deeper into chaos so they can prove how strong they are. He leads them toward the kind of peace where their soul can receive what it actually needs. This is the first great secret of the psalm. Provision, rest, and peace are not separate gifts dropped from heaven like disconnected packages. They all flow from one reality. The shepherd is present. If you reduce Psalm 23 to poetry, you will admire it. If you receive it as truth, you will begin to live differently. You will stop asking whether God has enough for you and start seeing that God is enough for you. That is where the psalm begins, and without that beginning, none of the rest can be understood at all by your heart today fully. The middle of Psalm 23 shifts from provision to restoration. He restores my soul. That line is more personal than many readers realize. David is not talking about a quick emotional lift after a difficult week. The word restore carries the sense of bringing back, returning, reviving, and setting right. Sheep wander. Sheep fall. Sheep get turned over and cannot rise by themselves. David had seen that with his own eyes, so he knew exactly what he meant. The shepherd does not merely feed the sheep. He goes after them, lifts them, and brings them back. Then David adds, "He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake." Notice the order. Restoration comes before direction. God does not first shame the sheep for being weak and then demand perfect steps. He restores, then leads. That is how grace works. God heals what is broken and then teaches the feet where to walk. The righteous path is not always the easiest path, but it is always the truest one, because it reflects the character of the shepherd whose name is at stake in the life of his people. Now the psalm grows darker. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. This is where the hidden secret becomes even clearer. David does not say, "I will avoid the valley." He says, "I will walk through it." The Christian life is not the denial of danger. It is the refusal to face danger alone. Valleys are real. Grief is real. Disease is real. Betrayal is real. Fear is real. But shadows cannot ultimately destroy the sheep because the shepherd is not absent in the shadow. Did you notice the pronouns? Earlier David speaks about God. He leads me. He restores me. But in the valley David speaks to God. You are with me. That shift matters. Pain often strips away abstraction. In easy seasons, people discuss God. In dark seasons, they cry to God. And there in the valley, Psalm 23 offers its boldest promise. The deepest comfort is not explanation. It is presence. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. The rod drives away predators. The staff corrects wandering sheep. One speaks of protection. The other speaks of guidance. David is comforted by both. Why? Because love is not only tender, love also guards and corrects. That is why the valley becomes a passage, not a prison for his sheep. By the time Psalm 23 reaches verse 5, the image changes dramatically. We move from field and valley to a table. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. This is not survival language. It is covenant language. God is not tossing scraps to a frightened sheep. He is hosting a feast for a beloved guest. And he does it while enemies are still nearby. That means the shepherd's care is not postponed until all conflict disappears. God can nourish, honor, and steady his people right in the middle of opposition. Then David says, "You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows." In David's world, oil could refresh, heal, protect, and mark someone with favor. Overflowing cups were signs of abundant welcome. Together, they declare that life with God is not a story of barely enough grace. It is a story of generosity. The shepherd gives more than bare survival. He gives nearness, joy, healing, and the kind of mercy that reaches beyond immediate need. That is why verse 6 sounds so confident. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. The word follow is stronger than many readers think. It carries the sense of pursuing, chasing, even hunting down. David is not nervously hoping that blessing might find him on a lucky day. He is declaring that God's covenant love is on his trail. The same God who leads in front also sends goodness and mercy behind, so that the believer is hemmed in by grace from both directions. And then comes the final line, "I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Here the secret of Psalm 23 becomes complete. The psalm is not merely a set of comforting promises for temporary crises. It is the map of an entire life with God. The shepherd provides. The shepherd restores. The shepherd guides. The shepherd accompanies. The shepherd protects. The shepherd honors. And finally, the shepherd brings his people home. So what is the secret that changes everything? It is this. Psalm 23 is not mainly about the sheep. It is about the shepherd. Most people read the psalm looking for themselves in every line. David teaches us to look first at God. When the shepherd fills the center, fear loses its throne. Lack loses its tyranny. The valley loses its final word. Peace becomes possible. Psalm 23 has comforted grieving families for generations. But it was never meant to stay at the funeral. It was meant to walk with you into Monday morning. Unanswered prayer, hard decisions, private fears, and every valley where your strength runs thin. David did not write this psalm to help people admire beautiful religion. He wrote it to teach them how to live under the care of a very real shepherd. And once you see that, the whole psalm changes shape. It becomes less about sentimental comfort and more about settled confidence. The secret most people miss is simple enough for a child to remember and deep enough for a lifetime to explore. The power of Psalm 23 is not in the sheep's ability to stay calm. Stay pure. Stay strong, or stay wise. The power is in the shepherd's ability to lead. He provides what you cannot secure, restores what you cannot heal, guides where you cannot see, protects where you cannot defend yourself, and stays where everyone else may leave. Because of that, every promise in the psalm rests on who God is, not on how impressive you are. So read Psalm 23 again, but read it differently. Read it as an invitation to trust. When you feel lack, remember your shepherd. When you feel restless, remember your shepherd. When you enter the valley, remember your shepherd. When enemies surround you, when discipline stings, when the future feels uncertain, remember your shepherd. The greatest change this psalm can make in your life is to move your eyes off your fear and back onto God's faithful presence. And if the Lord is truly your shepherd, then your story is not wandering toward chaos. It is being led toward home. Goodness and mercy are already on the road behind you.